What's up, y'all? Morning. This is kind of a impromptu one here. Don't have a ton of time today, so I'm just trying to keep with consistent uploads. Hey. What's up, Zeus Fart? God, such a good name. Actually, I think I need to take the elevator. I think there's a little secret. What's up, meow? Doing well? Doing well. I was glad I did that. Sheesh. Come on, man. Oh, jeez. For those that haven't watched it, I put out a little, like, 5-minute video. No voiceover or anything like that, but my Discord community presented something pretty awesome, I thought, with the visuals of the shadow tree and kind of just the general theme of some sort of trauma and loss and motherhood, pregnancy, and all that different type of stuff. And at the kind of core of it, it was about, twins, where one twin more or less got sacrificed to save the other twin because of umbilical cord entanglement, which is a very, very real thing. Did you just do this, Cave? And as I was getting ready for the stream, just kind of, getting things ready, I was just kind of, because I'm very much a proponent that there are clues within the map. Knowing Miyazaki's games, knowing how detailed he is, and how much of the story is told through the environment and symbols and all this different type of stuff. I was looking at the map, and I kind of noticed a similarity between the main map and the Weeping Peninsula. It looks like a reverse of the main map. Like, this would be the head, right? This would be like Liurnia, and then this would be the feet, right? like a very a smaller version of the same thing. Um, and one, I wanted to get your guys' opinion on it because to me, like how we get there is through the bridge of sacrifice. So if this is this like smaller, weaker twin that is getting sacrificed, um, and the themes of the Weeping Peninsula, like it just there's just um, so much symmetry between Weeping Peninsula, the shape of it being incredibly similar to the main shape of like the mainland, just in kind of the opposite direction. Um, and the fact that Bridge of Sacrifice is right here, and Paler's Catacombs is right here. We know that that Mesmere is a child of America's. Um, it's just it was very striking when I saw it, but I have once you start developing a theory, it's hard to not see it everywhere. Like I think that that's just the nature of human beings. So I like to get feedback from from people who aren't quite as deep into the rabbit hole as I am with it, um, to offer a counterbalance to that thought. Um, but it seems incredibly fitting, and the imagery seems to line up as well. So I was just kind of curious what you all think. Um, Crazy, hey man, good to see you. Um, yeah, theory's going well. There's a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of things that are starting to add up and make sense. Uh, Watch the latest video. I was thinking if twins are actually Godwin and Mesmere rather than America. Yeah, I actually think you're right on that. I was thinking about that too, and I think that the actual twins, right, the one that basically got picking to survive, and whether you think about it, in a metaphorical or psychological sense, where basically you're picking the one that is gonna be like the golden child, right? Like, or if it's literally a choice between one gets to live and one gets to die because of a very serious medical condition. But I agree, and I think that they are reflected in. Oh, oh. He's the other guy. Ow. Oh my god. No! Don't worry. Don't worry, we got this. It's too early to think and talk at the same time. And play. But I think you're right. I do think the fact that there's a missing chair next to Godwin, I think, is very telling. Uh-oh. My boy's coming down. This could get off the rails quick. Yeah, I heard you. Okay. Yeah, buddy. Okay.
I'm just gonna give you his tablet.
1 second, guys. Okay. Well, this could be interesting, but this is real life. So, um, no, I actually do think that. So I think there's a bunch of different symbolism going on with it. I think the twins, right? That one was sacrificed and basically born into the Shadowland was Mesmer. I think the one chosen to live was Godwin, and I think that the fact that we don't really get much, I don't know, evidence of Godwin, um, it are just kind of, there's a lot of vagueness around Godwin. I feel like, but I think psychologically that it's still you're picking the golden child, right, and you're casting away everything else, everything else that you deem unwanted about yourself. And the interesting thing is what that means for America and the Glomite Queen, because there's no doubt in my mind that the Glomite Queen is the personal shadow of America. Um, it's like her darker nature, right? And if if the Glomite Queen is about, right, the swaddling of newborns and death, um, then it would have been kind of that. Her shadow side would have been the one that kind of ultimately made the decision, um, and she can't really live with herself by by making that decision. It's very layered, but morning. What's up, Aaron? Oh no. I am curious to know though what you guys think about the Weeping Peninsula map. Hey, Evan. Thanks, man. Means a lot. Um, whoa, that's an interesting thought. Um, so, so for those that just joined, on my channel, I very much see a fetus in the womb as far as like the main map, right? Um, but one thing that's always been kind of odd is Weeping Peninsula. Like it seems very much not attached to the rest of the mainland. In fact, it's a bridge. It's very separate. Uh, but if you look at it, it is the kind of mirror side of the main map where it's curled in the opposite direction and very much the same kind of like this would be the head and the body kind of hunched over, and then these would be the feet. Um, if it is the quote unquote twin that was sacrificed to get there, to get to the Bridge of Sacrifice and Paler's Catacombs, Irina and Oscar's story, like it it adds more and more depth to the theory. And to me, now that I'm seeing this, it's going to be very hard to unsee it. But again, would love to hear your guys' thoughts on it. What's the role of this space stuff in your theory again? Falling beast, meteorites. Man, that's a really tough question. Let's go. So the Elden Beast. Actually, I'm making a video right now about the Greater Will and Elden Beast. Yeah, it is a horsey. And it seems like the first instance of fracturing. And actually, the more that I play the game, and the more that we develop this theory, the more that it seems like there's two different kind of things going on. There's America's inner world that's being reflected on the outside, which has always been kind of right the theory. It just seems like I never really saw a distinction between this is actually all America's inner world or it's being reflected, right? Her inner world is being reflected on the outside, like a microcosm and macrocosm type of thing. But the Elden Beast being basically a meteorite, right, is the first instance of fracturing. And we know that the Elden Beast also is the Elden Ring. And we know that the Elden Ring is basically America. So to me, the Elden Beast is the first instance. It's like her consciousness awakening, right? It's the thing, and consciousness is the thing that fractures the world, her inner world. It separates in between persona and shadow, consciousness and unconsciousness. Because without the emergence of consciousness, you have nothing to. You have no kind of reference point of this is what gets me accepted in the world, and this is what causes me to kind of be an outcast. This is what I like. This is what I dislike. It's all very much like a nebulous kind of matrix, like very much a crucible. So, to me, the first instance where the greater will, in my theory, the greater will is basically just evolution, right? It's like, it's just kind of the forward movement of things, and because of the nature of progression, right? Just in our species, we have opposable thumbs. We started having larger and larger brains. We gained consciousness and intelligence, and because of that, we were able to build the world that we see around us today. I see that kind of main thread as being the greater will, like the ever persistent forward movement of civility, of social norms, of evolution, that kind of stuff. So the way that I see the Elden Beast is just the first instance of, on an individual side for America, it's her own consciousness that is being born, right? And the way that it's reflected out is by a meteorite hitting the world and fracturing it off. So this is very much Fair Missoula. It's the snapshot of her consciousness emerging, right? It's the first instance of division, which is why we see the statue there where she is separating her beastly, chaotic side from herself. It's why the Elden Ring is starting to emerge from the crucible. Like, everything is telling the same story. It's just one is more of the inner world, and the other one is a direct reflection of her inner world on the outside. Same thing with like the Beastmen, right? The Beastmen, you could say it's a collective where it's telling the story of society, or like the human race, where we were very much operating in instincts and very beast-like, through just normal progression in time, just like in our, real life human species. We gained more and more intelligence, we gained consciousness, and from there, order came from it, right? Like, it's not hard to trace that kind of very linear progression of, obviously, I'm going to say caveman, but it's far older than caveman, to, like a world government and schools and laws and order and all that kind of stuff. I see the greater will as that overarching thing. And you could say that, the greater will gifted intelligence to the beastmen, but gifted, I think, is just like it happened with time. Like, nobody gifted us, a larger brain or consciousness. Like, obviously, if you're religious, you could argue that very much, but anyways, that's a very tangent answer to the first instance, at least, of like a meteorite or an outside influence, right? And the way that I see the other meteorites, anything that comes from the outside, it seems to be something akin to social pressures or intrusive thoughts, or something that is antagonistic to the way that America currently thinks and operates. So we know that America is very much, in her younger days, during her early godhood, is very much singularly focused on faith, life, religion, order, all this different type of stuff. So anything counter that would have to come from the outside, because it's not from within her. That's kind of how I see meteorites, and they literally crash into the world and kind of, they make an impact, quite literally. And the falling star beast and things like that are very magical, occult type of things, very scientific, which is directly against America's order, especially in the beginning. So that's how I see kind of mostly all outside influences, all outer gods, meteorites, anything coming from the outside is a force, or is a thought, or is some sort of antagonistic thing to the current world order. Sorry, that was probably a terrible explanation for. It's weird, either everyone has forgotten Mesmer or plain and simple ignoring him. Yeah. Good morning. What's up, Mayo? Mayo is actually my favorite condiment. So if you guys are wanting to get me a gift, just get me a huge jar of mayo. I put it on everything. It's pretty disgusting, honestly.
The dragon roosts there, and it's as fearsome as it is majestic. So, unless you're mad, don't wish to be burned alive, stay clear of the lake.
So somewhere out there, America has a midget twin? No.
Don't be a fool. Turn back before it's too late.
No. So, to me, right, there's a real life story happening where America is having to make a decision between saving one of her children, right, by sacrificing the other. Now, this is outside of the lands between and outside of all of this stuff. And basically what happens when there is twins in a womb, when shit kind of goes sideways, is there's a couple different things that can happen. One is the cord can get entangled, and obviously it's a dire situation for both twins. Usually in that case, there's still a twin that is surviving better than the other twin, and if the situation worsens, the mother has to make a horrible decision to sacrifice the weaker twin in order for the stronger twin to survive. Now, psychologically speaking, that's the same thing as the shadow and the persona, where they are one and the same, right? They are psychological twins, but opposites, just like Godwin and Mesmer would be. And you more or less sacrifice your shadow because it's directly antagonistic to how you perceive yourself to succeed in this world. So no, America doesn't have a literal midget twin out there. I think that the story, the way that the map is telling the story, is one twin basically got selected to live, which we could say Godwin, or the ego. One twin got sacrificed and sent to the shadows. One idea that came to my mind is maybe America destroyed the Elden Ring to bring back Mesmer after Godwin died, as Mesmer is his twin and the rightful heir after Godwin's death. That's definitely possible. Again, the way that I see it is America very much. This place. Gotta go. Gotta go. Oh, don't die. Oh, God, those are the worst. Nope. Fast. I still see the world that's being played out in is an internal struggle for America. So I still think Godwin is her ego, and ego death, the confrontation of that happens in the shadow. So to me, that's where Godwin has been this whole time. It's kind of in this watery shadow land, where we have to integrate the shadow and ego back together, basically. Our persona and shadow back together. And I think that that's the story that's happening in the DLC. Now, I still think that America shattered the Elden Ring because of a real life situation like this, right? It's just so hard to. It's just so hard to know for sure. Did I go do this stuff? I was wondering if Tanith and what's going on at Volcano Manor is another aspect of America's psyche that actually hates everything that she has built. Yep. I think you're very much on point with that one, Aaron. I think I should probably level up. Like if we think of somebody who has devoted their entire life to faith, right, in life, and is incredibly loyal to that dogmatic kind of one-way track, and something happens that shatters that loyalty or that trust in that system. One potent emotional outcome of that is going to be to want to destroy that very thing, right? Because you put so much of your time and effort and love and resources into it that it didn't end up helping your situation at all, and in fact did the opposite. You are going to want to quite literally go completely against your old social or your old kind of way of thinking. So devouring the gods, blasphemy, snakes, all that kind of stuff is a very powerful emotion where you just want to go the exact opposite direction of the way that you've been. And that's how I see Volcano Manor. And that's why I think a lot of the DLC, what's stuck in the shadow, is all of that stuff. America, in her growing of the Erd Tree, very much was against all of that stuff, right? And now she finds herself, that's a very powerful emotion of hers because of what's happened. Which is why you see it in the Lands Between. Because if, at this point, it's clear that Marika is able to send things to the Shadowlands that she deems unacceptable. But because of whatever trauma happened, the lines are very much blurred between accepted and rejected now. So things that she would once reject, she's feeling herself, and that's expressed in the outside world. Oh boy. Okay. Oh, come on. I wonder if these things were modeled after the White Walkers. They very, like, their sword is very similar to it. Hello, Mosey Moose. Good to see you. What was my major in college? Kinesiology. Yeah, it's exercise science basically. I wanted to do cardiac rehab when I thought I did when I was younger, but that's a joke. Like for I did not enjoy it at all. Currently, I produce events like marathons and triathlons and endurance events, stuff like that. But I've always had this fascination with human psychology. Like, I'm very much fascinated by the way people think, how different people, when presented with like the same picture or the same movie, can interpret things very differently. Like everybody else, the kind of psychopath, sociopath serial killer movies to me are incredibly fascinating. It's just it's one of those things that it's such a divergence from the norm that it's hard to even imagine kind of how they think and operate, and it's always kind of grabbed my attention. Crazy, I think he's being hidden by the same veil that has a shadow realm. Plus, we know America tended to hide what what could put and perish the Golden Order. He could be the boogeyman they talked about. Lanes between, but he's much more influential in the shadow realm. Greater will equals Illuminati. Not to me. It's greater will is just, it's almost like time, like just the forward movement of progress, basically. To me, I very much see the Illuminati as like the Karians, the astrologers, all that kind of stuff, that are even the Nox, that are quite literally driven underneath the world, which the Catholic Church did with the Illuminati way back when, because it went against everything in their doctrine and put God in a smaller and smaller box. So they would quite literally hunt out and kill people, heretics, I guess, just for, more or less, just for doing science. Now, obviously, there's a whole rich history behind that, but yeah. Let's see here. Let's go do the dragon. I was gonna go do it, and then I don't know. Oh, I got sapped away. So I think Crazy and Aaron, I think the reason that nobody knows about Mesmer is because he quite literally never saw the light of day. I think he was, quote unquote, born in the Shadowlands. And born is a very loose term, right? That's why I think nobody knows about him. Because even in Dark Souls 1, one of the biggest mysteries was Gwyn's firstborn. And they at the very least talked about him, right? Like, it was acknowledged that he lived and was a part of, this royal line before he was kind of cut out from history because of something that he did. We don't get any of that with Mesmer. Which to me just screams that he never really made it up here. And with how much hate and disdain there is for the Golden Order and for, like, America's order, I have to imagine that somebody at some point would have said, hey, here's a giant secret that America is not telling you, if they knew. She actually has this very blasphemous son that is doing her dirty work or whatever it is. But to me, because we get none of that, there's really only one solution. Now, whether he was born there, like, as in he's dead, so that's why, or he was sacrificed right away. But even then, I think that we would still, there would be some indication of that, in my mind at least. That was not a good idea. And some of the arguments that I've heard regarding, that doesn't necessarily mean that he never saw the light of day because of Filianor in Dark Souls 3. To me, Dark Souls 3 was never part of the original plan for Miyazaki. I very much think the entire team was surprised at the success of Dark Souls, and got pressured to basically make more and more of them. And thus, more characters were kind of born, and the story had to make sense. To me, like, the base game story is more or less all that Miyazaki had planned for Dark Souls. I could be very wrong, but just my 2 cents on it, I guess. And, we know that basically based off of Miyazaki's interviews that the story in the DLC is all he envisioned for Elden Ring. Now, he kind of left it very open-ended and said, well, there's always a possibility of being pressured by, the capitalist system to make more and basically, ride the success of it. But that story would be not necessarily a one-to-one kind of overlay of the current story. And that's how I see it feeling. So, today, just rambling. Get my butt kicked. Showing here, guys. Stop. Oh, no. That was too good. This is not good. Run, bro! Oh! Yeah, I just saw your... For sure. Yeah. Grexl... Gore... Exla? Yeah. I agree with you on that. I disagree that Mesmer's made up. I think by now they know that to expect a DLC with their success, where I think Dark Souls 1 was a little bit of a shock. So I personally believe that Mesmer was part of the story from the beginning. Now I know that they wrote the DLC after the initial release, but I think that this was always kind of the overarching. But just my Oh, no way. Get up. That's not fair. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I did add members to my channel. Not pressuring anybody, but just wanted to let y'all know. I really want to be able to produce higher quality content, but right now that's not really an option, so I'm just trying to find different ways to make that happen. Alright, let's go get a dragon power. I'll go talk back with homie over here. Speaking of twins getting caught in umbilical cords, that could be an implication of the entwined umbilical cords item that was cut. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if you haven't watched my latest video, it's like 5 minutes long. And one thing that's really interesting about that cut piece of content is the effect that it has of the wearer. Like, it changes your demeanor, which in game I don't know how you'd like make that happen, but the fact that it changes your demeanor is very much like the story that we're telling, right? Like, something happens and it changes your entire view of the world and how you like interact with it.
Beautiful work.
I'll be very curious to see if we get that in the DLC.
There's something you might like to know. The heart you
I
brought back.
I think for the mainstream it'd be really
It's
good.
used in
Like,
dragon
I think
communion.
that maybe
If you should find yourself overcome by hunger for the heart, yearning for its
if they
strength,
got that piece
then
of
seek the decrepit
item,
church on the little island off the western coast.
that maybe this would become a little bit more mainstream. But
You must not forget, though,
I guess
those
we'll
who
see.
partake in dragon communion will one day shed their humanity, their hunger for dragon, their yearning until the floodgates burst, unleashing eternal torment. The strength of a
Hey,
mighty
Charles.
dragon.
You too, man.
Magnificent,
I hope you have a great day. Thanks for the support.
but deadly. It's no surprise that dragon communion is ruinous. You must not forget those who partake in dragon communion. Their hunger for dragon, their yearning, until the floodgates burst, unleashing it to the strength of a mighty dragon. Magnificent. It's no surprise that dragon
So, I'll go get our first one. So in the first episode, we talked about thanks, Charles. That's great. In the first episode, the first couple episodes actually, we talked very much about how there is this giant severing between our roots, our history, our past, the more chaotic, beastly nature of ourselves, and what we see currently. And the game seems very much to try to tell us, like, we need to get back to our roots. We need to have harmony between these two things, and that's very much what the process of individuation is. It's about it's not about reverting back to kind of a childlike state, but it's about finding that balance and harmony that we once had as children, where we just interacted with the world and we weren't judgmental, and we were very whole and united about all the things good and bad about ourselves. And that's kind of one of the tenets of individuation. And within, the first hour of playing the game, we come across dragons, we come across beasts, we come across beast men, we come across crucible imagery, and it's all very much woven around the fact that there is this giant separation between the past and present, between the consciousness and unconsciousness. And we talked about how that is being symbolized here in the statues of the dragons with their heads cut off, and in the shadow world, Marika has her head cut off. And so it's just another thing that I wanted to kind of harken back to every once in a while. So we got a beast heart, a dragon heart seized by a dragon tracker. Riddled with gravelstone, this grotesque organ continues to beat vivaciously. An offering used in dragon communion consumes a dragon's heart at the altar to make its power yours. While a terrible and savage-looking thing, the heart has a peculiar beauty to it. So that last sentence is very much kind of an ode to the Crucible, to dragons, to our roots, our history, our shadow, where it's strange, it's unique, but it's also beautiful, right? It's something that shouldn't be feared or repressed or outcast. It should be something that is revered and is very much a part of our lives. Now, if you go too far, one way or another, just like in the world we're seeing today, where America has gone too far in basically the opposite direction, shit goes sideways. You lose balance, you lose harmony, you lose all these different things, and it's reflected in the world. And if you go too far and eating dragon hearts, the same thing happens. You get pulled so much into the shadow world that you lose your humanity. You kind of lose that ego consciousness that keeps society moving forward. So nice breath of fresh air your videos have been. I love the inclusion of psychology, especially the Jungian disposition. Oh, thanks, man. Thank you. It's been a lot of work, but slowly but surely I'm trying to make sense of things. Appreciate it. Okay. So, which one should we get? Guess the one that we're going to be able to use first is... I actually like the Dragon Call better. Let's read some of these. So, theirs is pure and overwhelming power. Okay, it doesn't actually say much. Basically, ate their hearts and we get their power. I think I'm going to go Dragon Claw. And I need, what? 17 faith. Oh, jeez Louise. This could be a while. Okay. How much time do I have? A little bit of time. Let's do Castle Morn. Yeah. Let's do Castle Morn. Man. This... It's just, I can't, like, not see it. I'm very, very intrigued by this all of a sudden. So I'm just kind of looking at all of these things. Oh, actually, let's do the Deathbird. That's what we can do. Probably die a million times, but so we're turning to night, and since this is Marika's inner world, right? This is the time where she is sleeping, and thus she is having dreams and nightmares, which are kind of the bridge to the shadow world, where the two worlds are able to permeate one another. It's one way that the unconscious can communicate with your consciousness. For example, like if you are having... you have something on your mind that you are kind of ignoring, you will often see it kind of come up in your dreams. So this is... the theme of death, obviously, is what Marika sees in her nightmares. Whether it's the Knights Cavalry or it's the Deathbirds, and we've talked about it before, but the Deathbirds are actually infant birds. They have infant skulls. I forget who shared that with me, but very cool little piece of... dang it. And if you watched my recent video, the procedure to remove a fetus from a womb, I believe is reflected in the Deathbird's weapons, right? Sacrificial axe, death's poker, where they quite literally rake out the remains of the dead from a kiln. I can only take that to mean the kiln to mean a womb. Okay. Cool. And what's really interesting about the sacrificial axe is that it restores a little bit of life whenever you, I forget if it's when you kill an enemy or you hit an enemy, but that's basically what is happening in that procedure. You are giving life by sacrificing one thing, you're giving life to the other twin. It's just, and I could be very wrong, but it's crazy to me the mysteries that start to unravel with kind of this theory. It's very much a collective theory. I don't want to just like take credit, because if it's wrong, it's your guys' fault. If it's right, I'll take all the credit, but if it's wrong, I'm blaming you. But I still feel like the mainstream lore hunters are very much like incredibly confused by the Deathbirds and what they represent, and the twin Deathbird and outer gods and all this different type of stuff.
Got him. First try, we got him. Oh, good, Aaron. Good.
Yeah, Evan. I feel you, dude. I feel you. That makes me very happy, Aaron. That transcends, transcends stuff. So, all right. So we get the sacrificial axe.
So, deathbirds come at night. They are infant birds, and they're all about raking out, sacrificing things and raking out the kiln, the ashen remains.
So a hatchet used in ancient sacrificial, right?
And if you look up kind of ancient
abortion type of tools, you will find very similar things to what the Deathbirds wield. So a Deathbird is depicted as a malevolent deity. The power of the right yet lingers. A small amount of FP is restored upon slaying a foe. All right. I gotta get my... Oh, shit. Right under it.
an Elden Ring lore YouTuber alignment chart. What does that mean? Just went back and watched the last 5 minutes of your videos. Awesome theory, totally agree. Thank you.
So, just as a reminder, this like southern part of the Weeping Peninsula was completely guarded off. Like it was completely walled off, excuse me. Like there's no gate entrance, there's no nothing. It was just a wall built around it. So in a real world sense, this was supposed to be something that was never meant to be accessed, right? Like it was supposed to just be guarded off from the rest of the world. In a psychological sense, this would be the trauma, right? Like this would be the thing that you're breaking through to access. So just wanted to remind everybody of that. I think the Weeping Peninsula is probably my favorite part of the game. The storytelling, the music, the environmental storytelling, like everything is just so on point with what they're trying to convey. It's quite beautiful. So the Siege of Castle Morn, a lone hero fights for his vengeance, only to fall at the hand of Lord Godfrey. Do you think that that's Mesmere? Miyazaki refers to Mesmere as, a hero. Now, whether he's using that in a, like, literal sense, or just that's how he kind of explains his characters and, the more dominant characters or the heroes of the story, whether they're good or bad is kind of indifferent. But we know that during it's a meme. Oh. We know that during Godfrey's age was all about the age of the Erd Tree and when the Age of Plenty was. Which to me is very much when Marika was younger, able to give birth, all this different type of stuff. And then it's very suddenly something happened and the Age of Plenty just stopped and everything became much more symbolic of its meaning rather than an actual, like, useful thing. Interesting. Jack as a mimic thinks that the besieged hero of Castle Morn could be a survivor of the Sun Realm. Yeah, I haven't. I really like his stuff, but I haven't taken a dive into his Sun Realm stuff. I know that's kind of like, mine is psychology. His is very much focused on that. Can I sit down? No, we could probably survive. So right here we get a story all on its own. This is very much telling the story that the shadow is sick and tired of being repressed, and basically a slave to what the ego is doing. And we've experienced, before we got to Castle Morn, all of these subtle hints as far as the shadow trying to get us to integrate it back into everyday life. So if that doesn't happen, the shadow will just completely take over. and it will literally rebel against the conscious ego. And this is exactly what's happening at Castle Morn. The once downtrodden, enslaved misbegottens of the Crucible have completely taken over, and have literally hung and killed all of the golden soldiers. And this is a microcosm of the bigger story at whole. That if you choose to ignore these things and keep running away from it, it will come back to bite you in the ass. And it will completely take over your life. So on a grand scale, we see this story being told to us by the Shadow taking down Godwyn, by Deathroot taking over the Erd Tree. It's basically just a complete hostile takeover of the current world order. Sunrealm being part of what was kicked into the Shadow Realm. Yes, he is more of a lore junkie. I think the lore he's digging up works in your Jungian framework. Yeah, I agree. I'd actually really love to have a collaborative kind of just chat with him. I think that I will be the first to tell you that I am not the best and most up to date with necessarily the item description lore. I know quite a bit about it, but I am not a scholar in that at all. So I'd love to kind of chat with him because he is much more adept to that kind of thing. So again, just try to think of Castle Morn, the landscape, the environment, everything that we're seeing as the current kind of state of America's psyche. It's being taken over by the Shadow. It is the old kind of powers that be are dead or dying. It's very somber, right? It's weeping, it's mourning. I love music in here. So this is actually, I wonder if this is the same music that is playing when we get introduced to America in the opening cutscene. I know it's a slow violin, very somber.
If you heard of Eternal Ring, it's a FromSoft PS2 title and has 6 divine towers based on the elements earth, water, fire, light, and dark. Oh, interesting.
I've not. And you can see that the battle is still very much going on, right? It's not... America is not just succumbing to the shadow. She's still very much resisting and fighting it, which I take to be Radon. The element of resistance and trying to keep everything the way that it is, no matter how shitty things have gotten. And, you know, in a psychological sense, you're not going to have real change until you let go. Until you just kind of succumb to your emotions and stop resisting the pain and element of change. And I've said it before, but that's exactly why I think you have to kill Radon to access the DLC. Before you can kind of successfully transform and bring about change, you have to give in. Fighting and resisting is only going to make things worse. His kind of whole demeanor and his whole visual is very much a reflection of the duality within man, right? Like half white, half black, and you can see that once this trauma of losing his daughter inflicts him, he completely loses grasp of his humanity and turns completely to the shadow, into madness and frenzy. And it's very much his armor and his whole kind of demeanor is very much a red herring of what's going to happen to him, or the fact that this duality of you know, of humanity and madness are within each person.
Foul creatures, as it said, and true enough, they're foul inside and out. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but whatever you come here to do, I'm afraid Castle Morn won't hold much longer. Take this.
So,
apology.
We know that the story, the bigger story is being told to us in smaller chunks, right? Like through different NPCs, through different environments, all this different type of stuff is it's not necessarily Oscar's story, Oscar and Irina's story. It's the story as a whole being told to us through their story, their smaller story. So that way, this is how we are able to digest and understand the story as a whole. And what he just said, as far as whatever you came here to do, it doesn't matter because it's not going to hold much longer, is to me exactly what is happening within the Lands Between as a whole. We know that the DLC is not going to change the endings, and to me that's because it's gone, right? Like it doesn't matter what we do here in Castle Morn, whether we defeat everybody or whether we walk away or whatever we do, the battle is basically done, and Castle Morn and the Lands Between is not going to hold on, and that's why to me it doesn't matter what we do in the, like it very much matters what we do in the DLC, but the endings won't change because the damage is already done to kind of the old way of existing. And we get a sacrificial twig for that. I'm not going to give it to you. I love your Jungian theory, but instead of being America's mind, it's humanity's mind. Yeah, I think... Like, because America is the god, right? Like... You could very much make the argument that her mind is the collective mind, if you will. But I do think that there's definitely two ways to think about it. Is it's on a collective level and on a individual level. But the individual level, obviously, by extension, affects the collective level. If that makes sense. Oh, what the? Does rot equal depression or something else? Yeah, I think so. I think that... So, on this channel, we've talked about that outer gods seem to be psychological illnesses or pathologies. And rot seems to be, like depression, where if you know somebody that is severely depressed, they're very stagnant, right? They're not really moving forward in life, or progressing kind of their own story. And it quite literally slowly kills you. Like what we see happening with Kaled and the ever expanding rot. And it's an incredibly powerful emotion and mental illness that can very quickly become the god of your life. And if recognized and the will to do something about it is there, it's a very powerful catalyst to address your current way of thinking and your current values, and basically if you choose to confront it and fight through it, you go through a very transformative process of growth and development, and you learn a lot about yourself and I'm speaking from personal experience because I had severe depression for a very long time. And when you come out from the other side of it, if you're fortunate enough to do that, it's very transformative. And I think that is exactly what we see with Melania, is she's kind of using rot to transform into something more, something better. But if left stagnant and you don't use it as a catalyst, it will just slowly take over your life. And we see that, in my opinion, with Renala. And the fact that the Lake of Rot sits right underneath of her, right? It's like another environmental storytelling of this is what the Lake of Rot is. It's stagnation, it's hurt, it's pain, and it very quickly can become the god of your life if you let it be. Or you can use that to transform into something more and powerful. but Mikola being a healer, right, and in my opinion, very much like a therapeutic, psychological healer, he is doing everything he can to get Melania out of that sickness. And Faith, right, the Golden Order and Faith aren't doing it. So he is striving to find another way to basically rid everybody of these illnesses. So yeah, I plan to do a lore video about all the outer gods and then about the endings. It's just there's so much to do. So yeah. Got a couple minutes left. Let's see if we can finish this up. Let's get some faith going. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. And if you become a member, you can vote on my next lore video. Shameless plug. Please help me, I'm of noble blood. If those hideous mongrels eat me, I will be forever marred. Anything but that, please think of the disgrace. So we know that those nobles come directly from Lindell, right? They're very much golden-eyed, part of the ego consciousness, where nobles are very accepted in the thought of being basically overtaken and consumed by the shadow is the worst case scenario for them. But it's way too late. Yeah, thanks. The Lands Between has no season changes. They're isolated to the area, so the Lands Between is in a loop of regulation that keeps the Golden Order immortal, but everything dies and has to die for progress. Yep. Crazy how Liurnia sinks, when in the past it was about always looking up. Now the stagnation lake of Rot, being the sitting ground of the academy that used to be the place of research and innovation. Yep. Yeah, what's even more interesting is that it is like where the belly of the infant of the map is. Just kind of another, like, the source of depression comes from the womb. Another very heavily used theme in the game, but not like a direct, like it's through a bunch of very small environmental storytelling. clues. But it's the common thread, right? Like, we were just talking about Volcano Manor earlier, and we know that the abductor virgins come from there. And they are weeping, holding a infant, and what's in their bellies are snakes. What's at the academy is Renala. She's not physically weeping, but very depressed and holding an amber egg surrounded by empty cradles, and what's below her is the Lake of Rot. Here in the Weeping Peninsula, we are immediately told this tragic story of child loss and revenge and mourning and moaning. And the thread of that is, yet again, child loss. So just everywhere you look, it's just the common thread that everything branches from. And like you're saying, Aaron, like it's this once very powerful queen can be brought down to her knees and quite literally is sinking into depression, like literally, regardless of her past and how powerful she once was. Again, Renala is telling Marika's story. So, water is very much a symbol of the unconscious. And to me, the fact that basically we're on an island, going to get to the island, we have to take a bridge of sacrifice. And then the final kind of area of this Castle Morn is an island as well. To me, this is very much symbolic of like kind of what is hidden and what is tucked away in Marika's unconscious or in her shadow. This could be a representation of Mesmir, and that's his gravestone. And the things that he grafted were all the blasphemous stuff that go against the Erd Tree and go against the Golden Order and go against Marika, basically. But Yep. Okay.
So, if we look at the map as a whole as America's journey, right? Memories of America, and we kind of travel it through the different churches, 1 through 4, and that's kind of the linear progression of America as a person. The fact that it ends here, in Castle Morn and at a Moangrave, is incredibly, incredibly important. It's telling us that the departure, right, from the Lands Between, from her old, dying way of living, the final act was because of this place right here. So the significance of Weeping Peninsula, Castle Morn, and this side of Grace is huge in the story. Mourn is when you grieve somebody's death, and it's usually accompanied by wearing black clothes. America is wearing a black gown. The abductor versions are all wearing black. And then moan is like this very guttural sound when somebody makes when they're suffering. And the side of Grace, right, is pointing you directly to this place. So this is a very, very, very important part of the story. The Grafted Blade, storied sword of Castle Morn, a revenger's weapon. It is burdened with oceans of anger and regret. So there you get the symbol of ocean, water being the unconscious, a revenger's weapon that is burdened with the unconscious of anger and regret. A lone surviving champion from a country now vanished was so determined to continue fighting that he claimed the swords of an entire clan of warriors. And yet again, we get the theme of our past, of our beastly, chaotic side, represented by Siraj, the king of beasts. Very much a symbol of the shadow. Lake of Rot in the Belly can also relate to America and the fact that she can't birth or even, or she curses most of the kids. Yeah, I take it to more mean that her womb is the source of depression, which would could be because of she can't give birth, or because of some terrible thing that happened in her womb, where it's like the smoking gun for the cause of it. The Elden Ring was altered to an earlier point before humans existed and gave live birth. Snakes were the first animals to give live birth. Mm-hmm. And what's even more interesting about Rot, and the fact that the god of rot is a scorpion. And scorpions are poisonous creatures, right? She could literally see her womb as a place, like a place of poison, a place that nothing survives. I'm not sure. Anyways, if you guys haven't recently, go back and play the Weeping Peninsula, and just, I'm curious to kind of see what you guys see, and hear your thoughts on it. To me, it's very much, a story of sacrificing something, which causes a great deal of trauma to America, and it's the catalyst that makes her basically abandon her old ways, and quite literally leave this land. And Mesmer seems to be at the heart of it. So that's gonna do it for me. That's gonna do it for me today, guys. But I'll be on probably tomorrow, maybe. If not tomorrow, Wednesday. And thanks again for all the support and all the love. It really does mean a lot. If you're not already, subscribe. Give this video a like, and consider becoming a member. Trying to figure out kind of how that whole thing works and the different perks and things like that. But anyways, much love from me to you. I hope you guys have a great day.